The dress shoes you trusted in your 30s might already be dead, and you wouldn't know it from looking at the box. A lot of that trust is now built on glue, not stitching, and once a cemented sole fails, no cobbler on earth can bring it back. Some brands take it further. They glue the sole and stitch a fake strip of leather around the edge just to fool your eye into thinking it's a real welt. There's a name for this trick in the industry. Once you learn the 3-second check that exposes it, you'll never look at a shoe the same way again. Today, we're covering 7 brands, quietly selling you disposable shoes at heritage prices. And 7 brands actually worth your money after 40? Flip the shoe over. Look for stitching that runs through a welt strip into the insole, with cork underneath. If the stitching sits on a solid glued edge going nowhere, that's decoration, not construction. Start with Cole Haan, because it teaches you everything else on this list. Its mainstream dress shoes are cemented, the upper glued straight to the sole. No welt, nothing a cobbler can open. When that bond lets go, the shoe is done. On pricier models, Cole Haan adds a decorative welt around the edge, often vinyl, stitched to nothing underneath. The trade calls this a bond welt, a fake welt engineered to read as Goodyear construction to anyone standing at a shoe counter. Some Grand and Nike Air models go further still, molding an Eva foam sneaker midsole into a dress shoe and gluing on a rubber outsole. Cole Haan was a real Chicago shoemaker once, founded in 1928, and the name used to mean something. Now we judge the construction. Not the cushioning, and the construction says disposable. Johnston and Murphy dates to 1850 and once outfitted American presidents in genuinely serious shoes, Goodyear welted. Some in shell cordovan, built to be resold and handed back to a man's closet for another decade. That company, in the form that mattered, doesn't really exist anymore. Production shifted overseas, the American factory closed, and the recrafting program that justified the price tag closed with it. Teardowns now put roughly 90 to 95% of the current line at cemented or basic blade construction. Priced near $100 with noticeably thinner materials, some pairs even turn up compressed paper in the heel block. If you bought this name in the 90s and it lasted a decade, then bought it again last year and it lasted to winters, the shoe changed. You didn't. The welt was always the shoe, and on this brand. It's gone. Florsheim's old Imperial line was the real thing. Goodyear welted. 5-nail heel, built in Chicago to last a decade. And vintage pairs still get resold today because they're still worth repairing. The current mainline is mostly cemented and priced accordingly, which is fine. Cheap sold as cheap isn't the crime here. The crime is a script logo, trading on a reputation the shoe can't back. Kenneth Cole runs the same play from the designer aisle, cementing its soles and leaning on the word genuine leather to sound premium. It isn't. On the real leather ladder, genuine sits near the bottom, above only bonded and corrected grain, hide sanded down, coated in polymer and stamped with a fake grain to hide the damage. It cracks instead of creasing. Read the grade printed nowhere on the box, not the name printed all over it. Steve Madden doesn't pretend corrected grain uppers, glued soles, foam insoles, built for a season and priced like it. That's an honest transaction for a single wedding. It stops being honest when it's your only shoe strategy. Buy one. Every 2 years from 40 to 60, and you've spent over $1,000 on 10 pairs, never once owning a good shoe? Clark's splits down the middle, the desert boot. It's honest crepe-soled suede that's barely changed since 1950. But its cemented dress line sits on the same shelf, trading on that same trust. Echo is trickier still. Its polyurethane is injection molded directly around the upper, comfortable from day one, but with no welt or seam a cobbler can ever open, and that foam hydrolyzes and breaks down with age. Regardless of how much you've actually walked in it, that's the wreckage. Before the good half, understand what you're actually buying with a real Goodyear welt. Because this is where the 20-year math starts. A strip of leather, the welt, gets stitched to the upper and to a rib built into the insole. The outsole is then stitched to that welt, so a cobbler can cut just that outer stitch line, pull the worn sole, and stitch on a new one without ever touching the upper. A cork bed underneath compresses to the shape of your foot over the first 100 wears and stays that way for years. Resold twice, That pair can run 20 years on the same upper. Flip any shoe over and check for 4 things: a real welt strip, stitching that runs through it into the insole, cork underneath, and stitch holes visible inside the shoe. All 4, not just one, Memur is the cheapest real entry point, full stop. Goodyear welted in Spain by a family shoemaking business, running roughly $195 to $400 depending on the line. At $200 plus 2 resoles, over 20 years at $80 to $100 each, you land around $400 total, or $20 a year, for a shoe that molds to your foot instead of fighting it. Grant Stone earns its $280 to $380 price with full-grain leathers, including Horween Chrome Excel on some models, real cork, and every welt marker present and verifiable. It's American-owned, but made in China at a factory the founding family works with directly. A fact worth stating plainly. Since construction and country of origin are 2 separate questions, and only one of them tells you whether the shoe survives contact with a cobbler, Carlos Santos has quietly made some of Portugal's best value welted shoes. Since 1991, out of the Snow João da Madeira shoemaking region, running $290 to $380, with hand-finished patanas that rival shoes twice the price. You likely haven't heard of them because they spent decades manufacturing for other brands. Labels, no marketing budget baked into the price, just a factory now selling direct. Patina finishes need real upkeep. Cream, brush, a shoe tree, some patience. Beckett Simonin proves the welt isn't the only path it uses a Blake stitch straight through outsole, insole, and upper instead, which skips the welt and cork for a sleeker. Lighter shoe, a specialist, can still resole. Full-grain Italian calfskin runs $160 to the low $200s. Kept that good at that price by building each batch only after it's ordered, so nothing's spent on unsold inventory. Red Wing is the control group in this whole experiment, founded in 1905. Same era as the names that collapsed, and it's still Goodyear welts its heritage line in Minnesota. From its own tannery leather, with an active reselling program that never stopped, nobody forced these brands to cement their soles. Red Wing simply chose not to. Expect a genuinely uncomfortable few weeks of break-in and a boot that isn't dressy. But at roughly $300, with 2 decades of wrestling ahead, the cost per year is close to nothing. Alan Edmonds deserves a caveat. Not a blanket verdict. The core welted lines are still real, Goodyear construction with full recraft support. But quality control has visibly slipped since its 2018 sale, with owners reporting thinner leather and inconsistent stitching pair to pair. By the Medinu SA welted models specifically, check the actual pair before you accept it. Here's the whole argument in one number. A $200 cemented dress shoe with a famous logo lasts maybe 3 years, can't be resold, and leaves you with nothing by it 7 times over 20 years, and you've spent about $1,400 without ever owning a good shoe. A $200 Goodyear welted pair sold twice over the same 20 years at roughly $80 to $100 a time. Costs about $400 total, $20 a year. For full-grain leather that molds to your foot and a welted last that actually supports it through a full day standing. Instead of a foam bed collapsing by month 18 and sending the bill to your arches and your lower back, the expensive shoe was always the disposable one. It just charged you in installments. Flip it over, check the welt, check the leather grade, then do the division yourself.